The House at the Edge of the Woods by Laura Anderson. Illustrated by Nathan Hale. Ava met Miles in the dark at the edge of the woods. "Do you see it?" Miles pointed at a house through the trees. "There's a shadow in the window upstairs. See? It moved." "It must be a cat," said Ava. "Cats love old houses." "It's bigger than a cat," said Miles. Ava shrugged. "Oh, maybe it's a mountain lion." "Very funny," Miles said. "It's a mystery. We have to find out what it is," Miles told her. "And get eaten by a mountain lion?" said Ava, smiling. "Not me." She turned to go back home. "Tomorrow night," Miles called after her. Ava sighed. One thing she knew about her best friend, he wouldn't give up until he had an answer. At school the next day, Miles grabbed Ava's arm. "Look what I found on the floor by my locker," he said. He held out a cutting from a newspaper. The paper told the story of the man who had built the house at the edge of the woods. He had disappeared 50 years ago. Ava started to read it out loud. "Shh," said Miles. "Andrew is watching us. I think he saw me pick this up." Sure enough, Andrew Miller was looking their way. Andrew was a new kid. He seemed nice enough, but Ava and Miles didn't know him well. Why was he staring at them? Ava read the rest of the paper silently. "Mr. Sanborn was never seen again. We had no leads," the Smithstown police said, "and we still don't. This is what we call a cold case." Miss Maybelle Mayfield was Sanborn's next-door neighbor. "Well, he was an odd man," she said. "He was always hinting that he had hidden treasure in that house." "The police told me not to tell anybody, and I didn't. Not till this day. Miss Mayfield now lives at the Sunshine Home for Seniors." What happened to Lester Sanborn? That remains a mystery. "I think the shadow we saw was a treasure hunter," Miles said. "Maybe," Ava said. "Someone cut this out of the paper. They must have dropped it by mistake." "We go over there tonight," Miles said. Ava shook her head. "No." "Yes," Miles said. "You're my best friend. You have to go with me." Ava knew that Miles would never give up. "Fine," she told him, "but you'll have to answer to my mom if I get eaten by a mountain lion." Ava met Miles at the edge of the woods again. "Let's go," he said. He flicked on a flashlight and set off. Soon they were at the back door of the house. Ava stopped. "You go first," she told Miles. Miles pushed on the door and it swung open. Ava was looking over her shoulder and ran into his back. "Ouch," he hissed. "Sorry," said Ava. Her voice echoed in the hallway. A bat fluttered from a dark corner and disappeared out the door. Miles pointed the flashlight up the stairs. "Do we have to go up there?" asked Ava. Miles already had a foot on the first. Miles pushed on the door and it swung open. Ava was looking over her shoulder and ran into his back. "Ouch," he hissed. "Sorry," said Ava. Her voice echoed in the hallway. A bat fluttered from a dark corner and disappeared out the door. Miles pointed the flashlight up the stairs. "Do we have to go up there?" asked Ava. Miles already had a foot on the first. He began to climb. The floor above them moaned and creaked. Ava stayed close behind Miles, step by step to the top. She told herself not to grab his shirt. Then they heard a crash. Ava turned to run, but the stairs were tucked in darkness. She couldn't see to the bottom. She turned back and reached for Miles, but he wasn't there. Miles was already in front of a door. His hand was on the doorknob. Ava wanted to scream, "Stop!" but fear clamped her mouth shut. She ran and got to Miles just as he pushed the door open. The room was dark, and there was someone in there. They could see a dark form in the middle of the room. Ava hoped Miles would turn and run. He didn't. He pointed his flashlight at the person. Ava stared. Then she marched over and yanked off the hood that hid the person's face. "Andrew Miller," she said, "do you know how much you frightened Miles?" "Me?" said Miles. Andrew grinned at them. "Do you know how much you frightened me?" he asked. Miles dug the newspaper cutting out of his pocket and held it out. "Is this yours?" Miles asked. Andrew nodded. "It fell out of my locker," he said. "I've been coming here to look around ever since I read that in the paper." "So we solved the mystery of the shadow in the window," Ava said to Miles. "It was Andrew. Now we know. Let's go home." "But what about the treasure?" Miles asked. Andrew grinned. "I already looked in this room and on the first floor," he said. "Do you think he left some clues in the attic? Or maybe the cellar?" Miles looked at the newspaper again. "Come on, you guys. We have to find out," he said. Ava rolled her eyes. "Here we go again," she groaned.